The poet laureate, Alfred Tennyson, said in The Passing of Arthur, "The old order changeth, yielding place to the new, and God fulfills himself in many ways, lest one good custom becomes bad." When you first read this as a student, you think this is a eulogy to a dying king. But on deeper examination, you'll actually see that he's talking about the world as it is today. A world where everything must change, even the good. The skill sets that we need today, cliched words such as the ability to be disruptive, as cliched as they are important and required if you need to not succeed, but simply survive. The year was 1990, and I graduated from a small but pretty good university in the United States. The United States was going through what historians will record as a mild recession. Slow job recovery is what they called it. I can promise you, for those of us on ground looking for jobs, it was anything but mild. Jobs were hard to find. No matter what doors we knocked on, they just weren't open for us. It was a really tough time. After a few months of searching, I was lucky because I managed to get a role with a company called CCL Mayfair over in London. A small insurance brokerage firm which was owned by the erstwhile BCCI Bank. I didn't know at the time how important this was, but the BCCI Bank at that time, in 10 years, had become the 7th largest private bank in the world with $20 billion worth of assets under its control. So my first day of work over in London took me in the afternoon to the pub. Now, many of you who have spent some time in London will know that the English tend to drink beer like most of us drink water. Over in the United States, it wasn't anything that my body was used to, and to cut a long story short, I spent the rest of the afternoon, my first day at work, fast asleep in the washroom. I was the last one to leave on the day. My second day was even more eventful. It's a day I'll never forget in my life. It was the 5th of July. It was a Friday. At about 9:30 in the morning, 7 of BCCI's global offices, including the offices of its subsidiaries, which we were one of, were raided by investigators amidst claims of widespread fraud, money laundering, you name it. We were ushered into a room and questioned independently for them to establish what we knew. All the records, I remember, everything was sealed on that day. The investigating officer almost looked sorry for me when he realized that this was my second day at work, and extremely bemused by how I had spent my first day, which I confessed to after he asked me what I knew about the business of the firm. I knew nothing. So I was employed for exactly 2 days. A week later, I crossed the pond and went back to New York, and was back in search of a job. Many, many months later, I finally did find a job with a company called American International Press. Many of you will not have heard of it, but many of you will have heard of the product that this company traded in, Webster's English Dictionaries. My role was in the sales team, and this was possibly the luckiest break that I had had in my life, even till today, because it taught me skills that go way beyond what I learned in a classroom, way beyond what a learning is. It actually gave me an education. So American International Press published this dictionary, It was beautiful. It was big. It was a lovely navy blue color, embossed, really well bound, color pictures inside. It had every single word you ever wanted to know the meaning of. It had an encyclopedia as part of it with pictures of everything. It was fantastic. It was the Google of that day. It was a brilliant, brilliant product. So my job was in the sales team. Now, most of you, when you talk about corporate America, will imagine that a sales job includes sitting at your desk, making presentations, discussing strategy with middle and senior management, and ensuring that dictionaries are sold. Not so. Every morning, we were taken in a company van and dropped off at the street with a bag that contained this dictionary among some other paraphernalia. And we were made to go shop to shop, business to business, Delhi to Delhi, cafe to cafe, selling these dictionaries door to door. Understand, it was a recession. The year's 1991. These dictionaries cost $67. It's a lot of money to ask from somebody in that time. But that's what we had to do. That's what my job was. I had no choice. That was the only job that I had. I needed to pay my rent, I needed to feed myself, and for every $67 that I earned for the company, I made 11. And 11 a day, when you start multiplying that as you get better, it really starts to add up and starts to help you make ends meet. But it was tough. It was really hard to start with. Really, really difficult. I mean, if you can imagine hitting the streets of New York City, and I'm not talking about Fifth Avenue or Lexington. I'm talking about the South Bronx, Bedford-Stuyvesant, where Mike Tyson had more amateur fights than professional ones in the ring. These were really tough neighborhoods, really tough people to go and sell these dictionaries to. And initially, it was a struggle. Every night when I'd go to bed, I'd tell myself, there's no way I can't do this. I'm not going back to work in the morning. But yet, every morning, I went back to work. And over time, I started to learn how to sell. Two incidents that I can remember really clearly as to what really taught me what I know today. One morning at about 7 in the morning, I went to a meat packing factory in Brooklyn. And we used to make these wonderful pitches over a 2.5 minute period. And I had an audience of about 20 people listening to my pitch, and I figured it's 7 in the morning, because these meat factories shut down by about 7:38 in the morning. I said, I could complete my entire day's sales, my targets, and I used to set my personal targets, which were double of what the company used to set for us. So I used to say, I'm going to meet my targets if by 7:30 in the morning. I can take the day off. And the guy in front of me was listening along with his colleagues, when suddenly I heard a voice from behind me saying, I'll buy one. And what did I do? I turned around. I pulled out the order form and I started taking out, and I started writing his name. Finished it, to turn back to get something out of the bag. Everybody was gone, including my dictionary. So now instead of being 5 or 6 sales up for the day and $55 up for the day, I was now down 67. And I was furious. I can't tell you how angry I was. I went into every single warehouse, every single meat factory warehouse that was, asking if anybody knew where my dictionary was. Because I had just been cheated, I'd been robbed. I was taken by one of the meat packers into a freezer where, unfortunately for me, I was at the receiving end of his strength. He finally threw the dictionary, which hit me on my head, and they walked out. A real tough start to the morning, but you bounce back. You bounce back from these things, to the extent that a few weeks later I walked into a shop to sell two ladies a dictionary. They were shutting shop. They were packing away things in cartons. But sales is a numbers game. If you need to sell, you need to be rejected, and you need to understand that. And at that point in time, I needed to be rejected 9 times before I made my first sale. That's how bad I was. These two women who were shutting shop actually felt sorry for me and said, "We hope you get a better job in the future." And I wished it at the time too. But there was a method to this madness. And American International Press knew exactly what they were doing. They used to put us through training sessions and teach us how to sell. We learned to examine a person's response on a graph to understand at what point you close that sale and make sure that he or she will buy. From selling 1 out of every 10, I started selling 1 out of every 3 a few months after being on the road. Funnily, we used a concept, a term that today I haven't seen used anywhere else. It was called radiation. And what that simply meant was that when you go in to make a pitch, you actually talk about who else in the neighborhood may have bought your dictionary. We used to start the morning before our first sale, walking down the street, name of shop, finding out who the owner was, and actually making dummy chips which we'd show. This increased our sales rate by 50%, doubled it. It was unbelievable. There was a great method to what these guys were doing. But more importantly, they hit upon a notion that has today become the hallmark of each and every one of you. Instant gratification. Can you imagine in 1990, if you buy a dictionary which you are so impressed with, and you get that delivered to your door by 4:30 in the evening. At 4:30 in the evening, a van would roll up, and all the sales you made were delivered. It was, Amazon and Red Mart have taken forever to get to the bottom of how this is done. And these guys did it in 1991 across 5 boroughs, and God knows how long they were doing it for before. I learned 2 extremely important skills during this time. Skills that each of us need in today's disruptive world. The first was instant decision making. I cannot even tell you how important that is. The ability to take a decision. What happens over time, experience teaches you to start running algorithms, formula, numbers in your mind. Numbers that are objective in a thought process. They become subliminal in the way you actually do things, but lead to a subjective, what seems to be a subjective decision at the time. But you sharpen these skills and you become really good at doing this math and saying yes or no. The second skill I learned was the power of observation. It was an extremely powerful tool. I remember once I walked into this office, and within seconds I saw that there were a host of golf trophies behind this man's desk. Another few seconds later, I realized that he had photographs of himself with his children, not one of his wife. instantly I figured, took a bit of an educated gamble, I guess, on the fact that this was a golf widower. And my entire pitch for those 2 minutes revolved around that. Another time, you learn exactly what the triggers are. And another time, I needed to sell 2 more dictionaries. My target was 10. Every day my target was 10. And I needed to sell 2 more dictionaries. I'm walking down the street, somewhere in Queens. I can't remember the exact street, but somewhere down Queens. And there was this drug pusher who was playing cards with his friends in the middle of the afternoon. I interrupted their card game and pitched on why he should buy a $67 book which he will never again open in his life. Again, I took a chance and pushed home the fact that he needed to get every opportunity that was available to his children at the time. For a moment, he actually looked upset. But then, when realization sunk in, he bought 2. One for himself, one for his son, and one for his daughter. The point is that these are experiences that have stitched the skill sets that each of us need in today's day and age. As I mentioned, we live in a time of instant gratification. Old world solutions do work in today's new age. You just need to figure out exactly what those are. For each and every one of you, it's important to start sooner rather than later. To be able to ask, why not instead of why? There's a particularly interesting author, one of my favorites, Canadian author called G. Kingsley Ward, who described the ability for us to embrace challenges with a comparison to cows in pasture. There are 2 types of people, he said. Those who accept challenges and those who don't. Those who don't will achieve as much in their lives as cows in pasture do. Those who don't will fail, more often than not. But over time will learn what those decisions are that they need to take in order to succeed. Either way, they will be better people for having tried. One of my favorite films, and my favorite actor, Robin Williams, as John Keating said, "Carpe diem, seize the day, boys. Make your lives extraordinary." Thank you very much.